US Secretary of State Antony Blinken embarked overnight for the Middle East to try to bring about a ceasefire between Israel and Hamas, despite there being clear signs of Washington's limited influence over Israeli policy. Here to unpack what might happen next is our global futurist and foreign affairs expert, Dr. Keith Suter. Dr. Suter, welcome back to the show.
Thanks very much, Ben.
Okay, we've spoken before about Joe Biden, who's nearly pulling out what little hair he has left over his Israeli counterpart, PM Benjamin Netanyahu's refusal to take his advice. This is now the 11th time Antony Blinken has visited the region since October 7 last year. What is he hoping to achieve this time around?
Well, it's very difficult to see what he can achieve because Israel is determined to continue almost a policy of unconditional surrender. It wants to utterly destroy Hamas. It wants to release the hostages. We think there are about 100 people who are still detained by Hamas. And so he wants to also ensure that people in the northern part of Israel can return to their own lands. They've been out of that area since October of last year. So he's really pushing ahead, while the Americans have been saying to the Israeli leadership, look, just take this as a win, and now let's work towards a ceasefire. But Israel's not interested in having a ceasefire. It wants to continue this campaign. And there are some people who are talking now about a campaign that will run on for several more months yet, because they just can't eliminate completely all of Hamas.
And so how will this visit unfold? Where will Blinken go? Who will he speak with?
Well, he'll obviously, he's heading into Beirut, which is, of course, caught up in the struggle. The Hezbollah group, which is different from Hamas, Hezbollah decided on the day after the Hamas terrorist attack to then also join in the campaign for as long as Hamas is fighting down in the Gaza Strip. And so he's going to be going into Beirut because the war is now spreading north of Israel into Lebanon. It started that really from October the 8th, the day after the terrorism attack. So we've had about a quarter of the country in Lebanon being moved away from that area in southern Lebanon. So he's going to be in Lebanon. I'll also expect him to go to Egypt and Qatar, as well as, of course, Tel Aviv and Jerusalem to talk to Israeli leaders as well. So he's trying to do what Henry Kissinger was able to do back in 1973, but he's not had any of the success. I think this reflects a lack of American leverage over the competence, over the people actually doing the fighting. It was different 50 years ago. The Americans could negotiate some sort of ceasefire. It looks very much that there'll be no immediate breakthrough. The Israelis want to continue fighting, and Hamas will also want to continue fighting. And Hamas and Israel are just basically so different from each other. Hamas does not even recognize the existence of the state of Israel. So he's going to have great difficulty trying to find a way of sorting this out. There's already an American diplomat there by the name of Amos Hochstein, who's already in Beirut, and he is working for the US State Department. And so he's trying to repair some of the ground for Mr. Blinken, but I don't think people hold out too much hope that Blinken's going to pull out some sort of ceasefire.
And what about his personal safety? Beirut's been hammered by Israeli missiles for the past couple of weeks. Is it guaranteed? How do they avoid any kind of unintended casualty there, which would spiral this in a whole new direction?
Absolutely, and no one can guarantee his safety. Obviously, the Israelis will know where he is from 1 minute to the next, but hopefully they won't target him. And similarly with Hezbollah, but you also do get missiles that go astray and land in the wrong spot. So yes, Blinken is certainly personally running a great risk, but he feels obliged to at least take this risk for peace in the hope of trying to get some sort of ceasefire, particularly in the lead up to November 5, the presidential election. That would certainly benefit President Biden, who's going to be in office until January, towards the end of January. And so there's plenty of opportunity, in a sense, for Blinken to pull a rabbit out of the hat. But at the moment, you'd have to say it's very unlikely.
And how have you assessed the conflict since Israel has really started to hammer Lebanon?
Well, Israel has had a run of great successes, but the problem is in warfare, quite often you overstretch yourself. Remember, the Gaza Strip down in the south is still not completely quiet. People are still operating out of those tunnels, maybe not a well-organized outfit, but it becomes a fragmented guerrilla warfare campaign, people operating in their own cells. So there'll be a continued campaign by those people down in the south. And of course, the more the fighting goes on, the more the Israeli captives are having their lives jeopardized. So that's down in the south. Up in the north, the risk is that Israel will be drawn into some sort of larger land invasion of southern Lebanon. And that may well be what Hezbollah would like to see happen, because then they could then start picking off the Israeli soldiers. It might also be that Hezbollah will just decide to fire a load of missiles at the same time and overwhelm the Israeli defense system. And of course, you've also got the other issues that are going on with campaigns from people in Syria, people in Iraq, perhaps beginning to attack American installations there, and the continuing struggle with the Houthis right down off the coast of Yemen. So the whole area is becoming more and more involved in a conflict.
Yeah, and nobody would like to see it end faster than Antony Blinken. We'll see what he can do, but I wouldn't hold my breath. I think you're right about that. Dr. Keith Suter, our foreign affairs expert, we really appreciate your insights on the Nightly Five.
Thank you.